I think a lot of people might start a business. They think, oh, this is a great way to make shitloads of money. The problem with that is that in most businesses, I think you're going to have significant periods of time where you're not making much money or potentially losing a lot of money. So if that's your only driver, then you're kind of stuffed. The argument for getting it perfect before you make it live or getting it better is we don't want to put this product in front of people and for them to have a bad experience and for them and then we've lost that person forever. But I think what gets forgotten about with that is the fact that your alternative is actually just not getting in front of anyone, not learning anything, and just not getting it in front of anyone. And I think people will give you a second chance. There is constant change that happens as you're growing, and you've got to embrace it. You can't avoid it because it's just going to keep hitting you. And probably a lot of our problems that we've had is just not changing the structure enough to keep up with the growth.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Make It Happen show. I'm Tim Morris, the CEO at The Entourage, and today I'm joined by Will Davies, the co-founder and CEO of Car Next Door. Car Next Door is a car sharing platform. It lets people list their cars and other people rent them. But it's so much more than that. They're on a mission to address climate change by reducing the amount of carbon that we put into the atmosphere. So we hear about how Will and Car Next Door are achieving that vision. We also hear about Will's key strategies for growing a business and the lessons he's learned along the way. We touch on the greatest books he's read, how he's applied them to his business. There's lots of great concepts here for you. Let's get into it. Okay, so I'm joined today by Will Davies. Will, how are you going?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Great, I'm doing really well. Very well now that we're coming out of what I think was a bit of a forced hiatus for everyone, and I hopefully think the future is looking bright for us here in Australia. Pretty lucky. Do you feel the same?
Look, I think we are incredibly lucky. We've got especially when you watch what's going on in America, we've got a sensible, cohesive society that's not tearing itself apart. So at the moment, I'm just happy to be in that rather than some of the other models you're seeing around.
Yeah, I think just having a sensible society, as you put it, has put us in pretty good stead here in Australia. So talking about actually improving society, that's really actually the essence of Car Next Door. Like, you guys are far more than just a platform that helps people find a car next door. You're really trying to break a bit of a paradigm there, trying to break the paradigm of one person, one car. How are you trying to make that happen?
Well, look, I guess probably the start of it is I started Car Next Door. To go back just a step before that, I had a mortgage broking business in the eastern suburbs, and mortgage broking is a good business. You can make some good money out of it. I was living a very good lifestyle, and everything was running quite nicely. But I made the decision when I was about 28 that I wanted to focus all my energies on reducing carbon emissions. That's because I think that there's a whole bunch of things that humans are doing that are buggering up the planet. But carbon emissions is the most pressing and the one that has the biggest ability to cause sort of worldwide devastation. And so I just wanted to focus all my energies on that, and got back to the mortgage broking business and thought, right, how can I get mortgage broking to help me reduce carbon emissions? And as much as I'd racked my brains, I couldn't work out how to do that. So I then went hunting for a business that I thought, all right, what's going to be a great way to help reduce carbon emissions, but also be hopefully a successful business, because you can't, it's not going to be sustainable. You're not going to be able to make it really big unless it's also financially sustainable. So I went and hunted for the idea that I was going to do it, looked at a bunch of different ideas, and peer-to-peer car sharing was the best idea I could come up with at the time. So that was kind of the reason why we started the business. I think a lot of people might start a business. They think, oh, this is a great way to make shitloads of money. The problem with that is that in most businesses, I think you're going to have significant periods of time where you're not making much money or potentially losing a lot of money. So if that's your only driver, then you're kind of stuffed. So, yeah.
I actually think far fewer people start a business to make lots of money than most people think. I think it's a bit of a myth. Certainly in the entourage, most of the business owners that come through our programs in our community, they don't get into it because they see this opportunity that think they can leverage and make $1 million. They do it because they really care about something. They've got a vision, or for a lot of them, they're just really good at doing something and they think that they can help customers by setting up a business around that. And so they start small. They start because it means something to them, or they're good at doing something. They know the customer, and then all of a sudden, if they're good at it, they have a business, and then they start realizing they've got to build this thing. But I also agree with you that if you have a mission or a vision, you really want to make some change, then the way to do it is by building something that is, financially viable, successful, can grow, and make a meaningful impact over the long term. Otherwise, you can't drive it for too long.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've had periods where been not only unprofitable, but you're struggling to even work out how you could potentially make it work in the long run. And if you're having a moment like that, and your primary motivation is money, then you're in a lot of trouble. So, and you're right, it doesn't need to. I mean, with my business, obviously, environment and carbon reduction is a very easy purpose to get behind, but it doesn't have to be a big environmental thing, as you say. Like I know people who are passionate. They hated how bureaucratic and crap it was to set up a company structure, so they created a way to make setting up a company much easier. So if that can be the thing that you just really want to fix.
Yeah, your purpose doesn't need to be a world level purpose or like a whole societal change. It can be something small that just drives you crazy that you want to make a change in. Just going back a little bit, why carbon? Like, why is this an area that got you interested enough to change your whole course and set up a new business around it?
Well, because I think that if humans keep going the way that we are, and keep producing more and more carbon, then, well, I won't go into the whole. I think everyone knows what the dire consequences of too much carbon in the atmosphere is. But I think that it's going to cost us trillions of dollars to fix up. Millions and millions, if not billions, of humans will die. Billions of animals will go extinct. There is nothing good that's going to come of a rapid change in the whole environment. Hundreds of thousands of hectares of currently arable land will become unarable, and the whole thing could get worse and worse. Like more areas become dry, more forest dies, it gets worse. The positive feedback loop. So I think that it's an absolutely life and death fight for humans and for the planet as we know it. I don't think that the world's going to blow up or anything. I just think that it's going to become incredibly difficult for humans in our current numbers to live on it unless we look after it a lot better.
Yeah, we don't need the world to blow up for it to become uninhabitable or a very bad existence for many people and animals. So I totally agree and align with you on that cause. So you said you went and had a look at a whole bunch of different opportunities or things that you could do to make an impact on that, and obviously you landed on car sharing through a platform, Car Next Door. How do you see that addressing the fundamental issue?
That's a good question, because quite often people go, hang on, aren't you just making it easier for people to get into cars and driving more than they would have otherwise? So there's two ways that car sharing reduces carbon emissions, two big ways. The first is that that there's been studies done that show that if you put a shared car in the neighbourhood that people can access, then up to 10 people will make a decision down the track to not buy another car instead, because they can now share it. And half of a car's carbon emissions are in its manufacture. So if you think of a car gets built, gets driven its whole life, gets scrapped, the driving bit is only half of its emissions. The other half is the manufacture of it. So fundamentally what we're trying to do is for every car that we can get out there, it means that up to 10 cars don't get built in the first place. So that's a massive chunk of the carbon there. And the second part is that people who car share drive less. And I mean, just the story I tell about it, you got two people, one owns a car, one is a car sharer. Both of them want to go and buy a loaf of bread from the shop a kilometre away. The person who owns the car has already paid the $8,000 of fixed costs that it costs to own a car, depreciation and rego and the whole thing. It's going to cost them 15 cents to go and in fuel to go and get the bread. The second person is going to have to pay $5 or whatever to rent the car, and that second person is actually going to make a much better decision. They're going to go, well, shit, I'm just going to walk or ride or catch public transport because I don't need to pay $5 or $6 to go and get this loaf of bread. Whereas the person with the car always takes the car because you've paid all the sunk costs.
Yeah, hiring a car for it makes it a very expensive loaf of bread.
Yeah, exactly. So because of that factor, people who car share actually drive 40% less than people who own a car. And
yeah, wow.
So you kind of combine those two things and you end up with a pretty significant drop in car usage for people who car share.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I can't quite do all the math right now, but that's almost like, for those 10 people in that suburb, it's like half the emissions through not producing the car in the first place, then 40% less as well because they drive less. And all of a sudden it's like 25% of the emissions for that group of 10, and you replicate that across a city and across the country. That's a lot of savings there. So I can definitely see how that works. How did you actually bring the business to be? Like, what was the first step?
Well, that was it was very interesting the first year. I think what your mind does in remembering these things is it remembers all the positive bits and forgets all the negatives. So I'll probably going to be a bit biased in what I say, but essentially what I worked out was there was a few problems that I had to solve. The first was that we needed to find it. It was we needed to get a technical platform in order to be able to do the connecting. So you put the car on. We actually connect the GPS into the car, and that GPS feeds back to our system, so we know where the car is and how many kilometres it's gone. So we need a technical system that is able to basically do everything that Airbnb does, but then also add this GPS layer onto it as well.
But the house moves.
Yeah, exactly. The house moves. Obviously not quite. It didn't need to be anywhere near as nice as the Airbnb system to start with, but that's what we needed.
Actually, just on that, the Airbnb platform when it started was not nice either. That's a problem that I think a lot of us have, is we see these huge players and platforms, and you see Facebook today and it's amazing, and everyone thinks that's what I've got to build. But Facebook in the early days and Airbnb in the early days and maybe Car Next Door in the early days, they weren't that. They were simple, they were rudimentary, but they were figuring it out as they went along.
Exactly. Well, I'd even go a step further with that. So we launched Car Next Door pretty much Christmas 2012, so January 2013, and it wasn't until around about 2016, 2017 that I was not embarrassed about our site. And I reckon that's really important as well, because I think for the first few years you should be in a position of perpetual embarrassment about your site, because if you're waiting until you're not embarrassed about it, it's going to take you forever and you're not going to learn anything. So I think the embarrassment's kind of good. I'm kind of proud of the embarrassment. Now I'm only mildly embarrassed about a few things with the site every now and again.
I remember when books like The Lean Startup came out. That would have been, what was that, like 2008 or 9 or something like that. And it was when the whole concept of like, get it out there fast, learn as you go along, be embarrassed by what you put out because it's no use polishing it up because you're probably wrong on half it anyway. And when that kind of thinking first came out, it was like, oh wow, that's so obvious now that someone's told me it. But beforehand, no one really thought that way. They thought, I've got to make it perfect. I've got to build this app that's fully functional and then release it to the world. And so that sounds like it was one of the real key premises for you guys. It's like, just get it up, get it running, figure it out as we go along, then fix it up later on once we know we're in the right direction. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. So, and I read Lean Startup for the first time probably in 2011 before we launched Car Next Door. But I read it every year for probably 4 years, because it's so foundational. I think that principle, and you see people not following it now.
All the time. All the time. I see that all the time. But it's because I think there's something in us that we don't want to put something out there until we think it's perfect. Like, we always want to put our best foot forward, and then it just takes either a bunch of lessons doing things the wrong way, or having people be able to point you in the right direction to, get out of your own way, get out of your own bias to always make something perfect before you put it out to the world. Being comfortable putting it out there, warts and all, early it's a hard lesson to learn, and I think it's great that you learned that before you even put the first version up.
The argument for getting it perfect before you make it live, or getting it better, is we don't want to put this product in front of people and for them to have a bad experience, and for them, and then we've lost that person forever. But I think what gets forgotten about with that is the fact that your alternative is actually just not getting in front of anyone, not learning anything, and just not getting it in front of anyone. And I think people will give you a second chance. Yeah, they might need to hear it from someone else. Like, I'm sure there's people who used Car Next Door in the early days that had a shit time, that then, probably took a few friends of theirs to say, no, I use it, it's good, and then they'd be back on. I think you've just got to get it out there.
Yeah, and also the numbers change, right? Like, in those early days, those first couple of customers, even the first handful of customers, are so important. You think they're so important at that point. But then when you get further down, if you've built something that is actually attractive and viable and people want, once you get a little bit further down the track, you start talking the hundreds of customers or thousands of customers, and maybe actually that first 1, 2, or 10 that you pissed off with a bad product actually don't really mean that much. It's much better to burn a couple while you find out what really works than actually not burn any at all because you never got it out there.
Exactly. So you can share those burning lessons with with the rest of your customers, a lot more of the rest of your customers. We were on Shark Tank a few years ago, and last night my wife said, "Oh, you should show the kids the Shark Tank video." So I showed them the Shark Tank video, which I think was 2014, and we were up there saying, and we're doing 700 bookings a month on the platform. That was our big thing, and we do 700 in a day now. And so we took all of those customers really seriously, and you've got to. But then to think, all right, we're actually doing more bookings in a day. We're getting more new customers come per day now than we used to in a month 4 years ago. You can't slow that growth down. You can't hold back on exposing yourself and learning. Otherwise, you just can't scale it.
Hi everyone, I just wanted to jump in here to let you know, if you're enjoying this episode, it doesn't need to stop here. We've taken this episode plus all the other episodes and also video footage from the interviews and made it available for free. There's also a bunch of fantastic guides, tools and resources you can use to grow your business. To grab those tools, just go to www.the-entourage.com/podcast. Right, let's get back into the show. How was that experience being on Shark Tank?
It was good. Like, I think it can go multiple different directions. I think what they do on the show is they might make a goodie and a baddie. A goodie, a baddie, and a battler, I reckon, is what they kind of go for. And we were lucky because they decided to make us the goodie. So it was funny watching it. All the times that they cut back to the Sharks are like, oh, yes. Like, I'm sure they pulled some funny faces at us, but they didn't show any of that. They just made us look like absolute legends. So
nice.
We didn't put a step wrong. There was things that I said that were stupid in there. They cut all of that out. They just left the good thing. So it was a very good experience for us. We had Steve Baxter invest, and he's just a great guy, and one of our most proactive investors. So it worked out well. But if you were one of the ones that decide to make the baddie or the battler, then I think it'd be a very A, you wouldn't get any money, and then B, you just come out looking like a twit. So
yeah, I have heard people refer to some people being shark bait on the show.
Yeah.
And I actually had a buddy who was on there, and it went very badly. He didn't think it was going to be a good result, and he was really ruining when it would go live. That he got lucky that it was so bad that they just basically didn't even include his segment at all.
Oh, really? Really? Yeah, that's very lucky.
He's like, I actually dodged a bullet there. All right, fair enough. And so let's talk about investors and raising capital. You guys have raised a lot of capital over the journey. I think over 20 million bucks from a bunch of different sources as well. So you've had from like high profile investors like Steve Baxter, but also some corporate investment as well. What are some of the kind of things you've learnt along the way raising money from all those different types of sources?
I guess there's a few things that I think we've done well with the capital raising that are probably worth sharing. The first thing is that from day one, I started a future investors mailing like email list. So as soon as I started the business, I basically thought, all right, who's anyone that I know who's got some money or who might know someone who's got some money who might want to invest in this? And I said, look, I'm starting up this business, Car Next Door, really keen to keep you up to date as we go. And then every 2 months or so, I would sort of have the discipline to say, right, here's what we've done, here's what we're going to do, and then just follow that up. What that means is that when you go to capital raise, you're not just Will Davies, the random hitting someone up for the first time. You're someone who's introduced yourself and then started telling the story over a period of time, so that they feel like and actually do know what you're going and have a bit of a feeling about your character.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Did you learn that from somewhere, or you just kind of figured it out and started doing it and got some return from it and kept on doing it?
Yeah, I'm gonna nearly everything that I do has been learned from someone else, but I'm gonna claim that one actually. I don't know why I did it. I was when I was a mortgage broker, I was very big on following people up, and basically the saying, you don't have to be good, you've just got to be there. I really like that. And so, following up, effectively, it's a sale. You're selling your part of your business to someone. They're giving you money for it. So I don't know. I think sometimes people think that it's something different, but it's not. It's a sale, and so you've got to have a sales process for when you're selling your business. The other thing, so then we did our first round of capital, which was 650 grand. And that was after I put in the first 250 because I had a bit of money from when I sold the mortgage broking business, but got the 650 grand in. And then I think this is the second thing that people often stuff up with is they get the investor in, and then they don't keep in touch with the investors until they need to get more cash out of them, and then people are just pissed off. I've been on the other end of that. Invested in a business, and the only time you'd hear from him is when he wanted more money, and you're just kind of angry by the time he calls you.
I've seen that as well, actually. Yeah, or even you just don't even hear from them at all.
No, yeah, exactly. So what I do now, I mean, where this is all crystallized into is I've got a future investors list, which has probably got like 700 or 800 people on it. All the different people I've met who've said no to me over the years. People who, events I've gone to, and I've met people and they've been keen to stay in touch with what we've done. And then Car Next Door's got about 50 investors in it. And so every month I will send the investors a newsletter, which is essentially just our top few graphs, and then with a few words underneath it talking through how we're going. And then every 3 months I'll repurpose that investor newsletter into a future investors newsletter and just give them the non-sensitive information that I can share, so that if we do need to capital raise down the track again, I've got a nice big list of people to start with. So what I've just said is really simple. It takes me, let's just say the whole process takes me an hour a month, an hour to do the investors, and then another 20 minutes to do the future investors. I've had people who are on my future investor list tell me that I keep in better touch with them than businesses they've invested in keep in touch with them. it annoys them. And so it's remarkable to them that I'm doing this, but it's such a low time commitment for me, and it's such an easy discipline, but people just don't do it. Like if you did that, you would be, I reckon, less than 0.5% of businesses do anything, anything simple like this at all. So it's an easy way to stand out.
Yeah, I'd agree with you 100%. All right, so I think that is one of the key lessons out of this whole conversation. It's just better communication with your current investors, better communication with those that you want potentially to invest in the future. And it doesn't just need to be investors. Maybe it's people that you want to do business with, or people that you want to promote your business through. Like a lot of the times, we only go to people when we want something. So start building that credibility and building that relationship beforehand, and you'll go a lot further. Awesome. So you've come a long way since you stood up in front of the Sharks, and you said we're booking 700 people a month. You're up to 700 people a day. What have been some of the biggest challenges through that growth journey?
Oh, there's been lots of challenges. It was interesting. It just makes me recall a conversation I had. One of our investors is Hollard Insurance, which is they're our insurer. I was speaking to their kind of the main guy who I was doing the deal with when they came on board, and I was saying, look, customer service, we've got that all sorted. Like we're really efficient. And he said, look, no offense, but I don't think you even know what kind of problems you're going to have with servicing customers. And he was completely right. We had a phone system that was completely not up to the task of scaling a customer service team. We really had nothing in place, and we thought we did.
Yeah. I'm laughing with a little bit of chagrin here because we've gone along a very similar journey, right? Like whenever you start doing something, you think that you're right up to speed with it in the early days, and then as you start to learn more, you're like, oh, wait a minute, there's so much I don't know. And building a team is just like that. Like the levels of complexity that start coming in when you've now got a team of 10 or 2 teams of 10 or multiple different geographies or departments, and the communication doesn't flow. We've also gone through that same journey of setting up a team over in Manila, so we've got about 20 over there, which has actually been great for our business. We think that's been a real strength for us. But managing 2 different teams through a global pandemic in different countries with different things the level of complexity certainly ramps up far higher than you ever would have thought right in the early days, when it's like one person answering a couple of inbound inquiries through Zendesk. It gets hard, it gets more challenging very quickly. So you guys have navigated that.
All we've done is we've learned how to take it from 5 people to 50. What I think I have learned, like the real learning, is that I don't know at the moment. I don't know what's going to happen if we need to take it from 50 to 200. That's going to be another whole different level of issues. I remember in the mortgage broking business, I read that book, E-Myth, that talks about, you create position descriptions and you get everyone on the roll. They know exactly what to do. And I used to love that. And I thought, right, once that position is created, then that's great. That's sort of frozen like that, and I can move on to the next thing. But what I've realized is, and it actually used to annoy me when you had to change things up, because you're like, I've done all this work, I've made all these processes, I don't want to have to change it. But there is constant change that happens as you're growing, and you've got to embrace it. You can't avoid it, because it's just going to keep hitting you. And probably a lot of our problems that we've had is just not changing the structure enough to keep up with the growth.
Yeah, I think it's trying to get the balance between structure and fluidity. So recognizing that you do need some structure in place, you need some processes in place, otherwise it's chaos. But everything is going to be in a constant state of flux as every new thing you do, every new opportunity you chase, every new team member you bring on, it changes what you've got. So it's balancing between the two. So speaking about change for you guys, like what's this year been like, and what do you see the growth of Car Next Door being like over the next couple of years?
So this year's been super interesting. When COVID hit, we went down 70%, and I was thinking, God, this is going to be horrendous. But then what happened is, once that initial lockdown happened, we found that we're actually getting more bookings than than we expected for that period because people didn't want to catch public transport anymore. People were concerned about COVID, but they were still getting out and about. But then Victoria went into their second lockdown for that extended period of time, and so basically then Victoria went down 70% for the second lockdown. So it's been a pretty tough year. New South Wales and Queensland sort of 50% up compared to the year before. So you just this cluster in Adelaide, you just never know.
I'm hopeful that there's some pretty good news coming out about different vaccines and how effective they are, and I suppose it depends on what side of the fence you sit on with vaccines or not. But I do think that there's some promising stuff ahead. But it's still, we're still, middle of 2021, maybe even later end of 2021 for some of these programs to really have a big impact. So yeah, there's a bit of water to go under the bridge yet. All right, I've got a couple more questions here that I haven't seen and you certainly haven't seen, and we try and make these happen in a minute-ish. All right, let's have a quick little look here. The first question is, we've almost covered this, but not quite, is what was the most unexpected part about being on Shark Tank?
Well, the sharks aren't real. I sort of poked the screen on the way in. Well, look, what was interesting is you're actually up there. You're up there for 1 hour. We were in that room for 1 hour, and they used 7 minutes. So what I didn't realise is that they can basically just do whatever they want. You see the ones where they're trying to make someone a bad guy, that they might have them do like a dodgy sort of twitch of the eyes or something like that, where they might have done that once, but they'll just keep cutting back to that and use that 4 times throughout it to make them look as sketchy as possible. The other thing is you just got to have your head around the maths. Like, it's when it's those questions like, oh, so what was your revenue back in 2017? And the person, they've got the figures in their head, but maybe they had it in calendar year and not financial year, so they try to do the reverse maths, and you've got to give them the figures in the way you've got it ready, memorize it.
All right, question number 2 is, what has been the best part of having large companies such as Hyundai and Suncorp invest in the business?
I think the fact that Suncorp or Hyundai, they do all the due diligence, they've got all those resources at their disposal, and then for them to decide, yep, this is a good investment for us, this is a safe place to put our money, it's just a really big it's a big nod in the right direction. I think, it's one thing to have a speculative individual investor go, yeah, I like these guys, I'll put some money in, but it's another to have your business completely scoured. The second is, as unpleasant as that scouring might be, it's good when you come out the other end of it. The second part is that they're huge businesses with huge databases and huge opportunities for us to do stuff together. So, the reasons that we've partnered with them is because we think that there's big opportunities for us to work together and to help grow our business and to also help them learn about what we're doing.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's very different from having a high net worth individual that maybe it's all on relationship. Like, they're going to go through everything with a fine tooth comb, the bigger players. So yeah, really, really amazing stamp of approval. Question number 3, what is the best way any CEO can build and grow more leaders in their team?
This is how I've done it. First step is that we've got a business that has a really strong why. Like, our whole business was set up on the why. We want to reduce carbon emissions. That means that we found it really easy to attract great people to the business even early on. So I think that that's a big part. When we do recruit, we recruit on our values. So our values are actually an integral part of our recruitment process. And then the other thing that we do is we've got like a learning and development, a professional development plan that everyone in the business is expected to do, especially if you're looking to become a leader in the business. So we really encourage people to attend conferences and to read books and to meet people who can help them get to the next level, and have got a way for people to hold themselves accountable to doing that. There's a book, I think, is it Radical Candor? It talks about rock stars versus superstars.
Yeah, I remember the book. I don't quite know the concept though.
I love this concept. So a rock star is someone who is just really good at what they're doing. They actually don't have any aspirations to keep on. They're not on a trajectory like this. They might not even want to become leaders. further than what they are, but they're bloody good at what they do. And a superstar is someone who's really good, plus they're also trying to push. And it's about this is quite a new idea for me and a lot in our business, but it's recognizing if we've got these great people, not everyone does want to become a leader and keep moving in the organization. They're just happy doing great work. So let's just let those people keep on doing great work and then focus your attentions on the great people who are also pushing upwards. So that's been a really good way of focusing and putting our attention and promoting people who actually want to be promoted, rather than promoting someone who's great at their job, doesn't even want the promotion, but we kind of make them because they're good, and then they suck at the next level.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to look into that more. Rock stars and superstars, radical candor. Last question from me. If someone is facing challenges in the growth of their business, so the real growing pains, what's the one or two key things you think they should do to overcome it and make it happen?
Try to get to the guts of what the problem is. There's another really good book called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy that has a really good way of sort of thinking about that. So get to the guts of the problem, because you want to be trying to solve the right problem. Then design small experiments that could potentially fix the problem, and go, all right, well, let's chuck $100,000 a month at this. Then let's just chuck 5 or 10 grand, see if it works, and then if it does, we'll scale it up.
Yeah, great. So brainstorm, come up with a bunch of different options, boil it down into small tests that you can do, and then see which ones work, and then double down on the things that do. All right, last question for me is, what are you looking forward to the most next year?
Well, I read this book, Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. We've created a refreshed strategy for Car Next Door, and I'm just pumped about executing on that. So it's just exciting to get, once you actually have a clear vision about what you're trying to do, how much more motivated you are to do it. And a sort of a medium term thing. I think we've been really good on, the big future. We want to get rid of carbon emissions. And then we're really good on what we're going to do over the next 3 or 4 months, but we've been pretty crap over, right, what are the things, where do we want to be in sort of, what key things do we want to do over the next 1 or 2 years? I'm pumped about hitting our 1 or 2 year vision that we've just set.
Awesome. So you're going into the next year with a really clear plan. You know what you want to achieve. You're excited about it. I think that's a really great place to be.
Pumped.
Yeah, fantastic. Will Davies, it's been awesome to have you on the show. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much.
Great to speak. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Make It Happen show. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And it doesn't need to end there. We've actually gone and grabbed a whole bunch of extra resources for you. Behind the scenes footage, videos from this and all the other episodes, as well as show notes that you can grab for free. Just head along to www.the-entourage.com/podcast and you can grab all those extra resources. Thanks for tuning in, and I cannot wait to introduce you to our next guest on the next episode.